I don't photograph life as it is, but life as I would like it to be. Hello photography fans! Today I would like to talk about a photographer who was a part of this classic era of photojournalism in Europe. Part of the same generation as, for example, Cartier-Bresson or Robert Capa, who I have talked about previously. The author of one of the most well-known romantic pictures in the world. Let's talk about Robert Doisneau. Robert Doisneau was born in France in 1912. Unfortunately, his parents died when Robert was very young, so he was raised by his aunt. His first contact with art was already during his school years. When he picked up photography at the age of 16, he was said to be pretty shy and only photographing cobblestones in the beginning. That's actually pretty interesting because he worked himself up all the way to be called a champion of Humanist photography. In 1930s, he started to sell his first photographs and later started working as advertising photographer for Renault car factory and after that in Ricoh photographic agency. After the war, he returned to freelance photography for magazines such as Life. Even though he was invited to Magnum by Henri Cartier-Bresson, he remained in the Ricoh agency for his whole career. In 1950, Doisneau took one of his most famous pictures, The Kiss. The Kiss is an iconic shot of a couple kissing in the middle of a crowd in Paris. When we look at the composition, there is the kissing pair in the middle of movement, which kind of represents the Paris in 1950s and this romantic idea a lot of people had about Paris. What's interesting about this picture is not only how iconic it is, but also even though Robert Doisneau was a street photographer, this picture was actually staged. He was actually commissioned by Life magazine to photograph kissing people in Paris, and he later, when he was asked why it was staged, he said, "I would have never dared to photograph people like that. Lovers kissing in the street, those couples are really legitimate." To be honest, since it was an assignment, I don't really mind it was staged. And who would be a better person to create a street scene like this than a street photographer? Just like Cartier-Bresson, his work is centered about geometry. I love this picture where the diagonal line is splitting the picture in half and the ballerina is also slightly off-center. This is also something you don't see every day since this was shot from above, making the use of her round shape for the composition. We can also find other photography techniques such as leading lights or figure to ground and rhythm, and usually those techniques are combined together. The humor in his photography is interesting because it's not only shot for the sake of the joke, but we can also see a great use of photography techniques. The humor was also applied when photographing celebrities, as for example in this portrait of Pablo Picasso, where he used breath to kind of mimic the fingers, which is funny when you see Picasso's abstract paintings. Another chapter is his children photography, and again we can see a use of humor rhythm, geometry, and other photography techniques. One thing that's interesting about his street photography is he never wanted to ridicule his subjects. Unlike Vivian Maier, who kind of liked photographing people in, let's say, uncomfortable situations, he, for example, refused to photograph women punished for sleeping with Germans whose heads had been shaved. If you like his work, I would recommend to check out his photography books. There are several of them. I will leave the links in the description as always. If you liked this video, feel free to give it a like. Let me know what is your favorite image of Robert Doisneau, and also subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.